Hi there, it's Emma, and welcome to Sax Bites, the 5-minute saxophone lesson podcast. I've really been enjoying making these episodes for you, and I hope you've been enjoying these short little bite-sized saxophone lessons too. Today, I'm going to be answering the question, where on earth do I breathe? Now, my students can definitely swear to the fact that I push them to play through many bars and many phrases without taking a breath. But I promise I don't do it just to be mean. I always am focused on taking a breath in the most logical, musically sound place. So the answer to where on earth do I breathe is the most logical spot. Not very helpful. Let me explain a little bit further. So when students start out, they're often using a tutor book or a structured guide. Think something like Standard of Excellence, Tradition of Excellence, Essential Elements, where for a very long time, breath marks are specifically marked in the music. So students get used to being told where they need to breathe. And sometimes as the music gets more challenging and breath marks aren't always included in the music that students read, students aren't able to develop a practice of recognizing logical and useful breathing spots that are really going to help them. So what would I describe as a logical and useful breathing spot? Well, there's a couple of criteria. First is that you are breathing at the end of a phrase, not the middle of it. We wouldn't breathe in the middle of a sentence while speaking, so we don't want to breathe in the middle of a musical sentence. Secondly, it's useful because it makes sure that you've got enough air to get through a challenging or long section that might be coming up, a long phrase that doesn't lend itself to taking a breath for quite some time. Or thirdly, a logical and useful breath spot could be somewhere that adds to the drama or emotional impact of the music that's being played. Think a strategic pause or a strategic silence that helps you really amp up the impact of what you're trying to do expressively. Finding these types of breath spots can be really tricky. So often with my students, I actually get them to listen to recordings, or if a recording isn't easily available, to record them self-playing and to sit down with the score and to mark out breath marks where they either, one, here is a really good spot for a breath, particularly if they're listening to a professional recording, or two, where they think would be a better option for a breath based on how they've heard their own playing. So they might have heard, oh, that sounds really awkward. I keep taking a breath there. It's not very good. What if I breathe 2 bars later? But the key to this is making sure it is actually marked on the score. I really can't stress this enough. Better breathing practices happen through 2 things: knowing exactly where you're going to breathe and practicing in those exact moments where you're going to breathe every single time. If you are practicing taking a breath wherever, when it comes to the performance, you're going to take a breath wherever. It's not going to follow a plan, even if it's marked on the score that you're reading, because that's what you've practiced in. Your body hasn't gotten used to the feeling of, oh, that's how long my air has to got to last, and now I can take a new breath, and now I know how long I've got to take that new breath. It's not rehearsed in. So having a clear plan marked on your score in combination with really repetitive practice, even let's say you've decided to work on a section and you're going to start 1 bar before a marked breath mark on your score. You might think, well, I have plenty of air in the tank. Why would I take that breath? You're taking it because you're practicing exactly what's going to happen in that music, in that point in the music, every single time you play it, and especially when you do it in performance. Someone once told me that when we perform, we can only play at 80% capacity of what we can do in practice. So if you've ever had that moment of, oh, this sounded really good at home, but then when I went to play it for my teacher, it didn't work. That's kind of the 80% rule in action. And if we apply that to better breathing, if we, one, don't have the breaths marked on our score, and we, two, haven't practiced in where those breaths are, and then we're playing at that 80% capacity in performance, it's not going to go very well, is it? So if I had two big takeaway tips for you today, they would be it. And I really love students recording themselves and listening back. So if you've put these into practice, make a recording of yourself, listen back, have the score in front of you, and see how much better playing can be with great breathing practices. That's all for today's bite-sized lesson. I hope to hear from you very soon on socials. I'm going to be doing some listener episodes soon. Bye.